For olfaction, we need to have olfactory receptors. They are the receptors situated in the olfactory mucous membrane that lines in the upper part of the nostril. So this is the diagram. The red part is the olfactory receptor. It is nothing but the receptor situated in the olfactory mucous membrane that is lines the upper part of the nostril. So this yellow is a mucous membrane, olfactory mucous membrane. The olfactory mucous membrane consists of around 10 to 20 million of olfactory receptors. This yellow part is the olfactory mucous membrane. It contains around 10 to 20 million of olfactory receptors. In taste pathway, we have type 1 cells. Similarly, in the olfactory, we have the cells, sustentacular cells. So olfactory receptors are situated in the olfactory mucous membrane. The olfactory mucous membrane consists around 10 to 20 million of olfactory receptor cells supported by the sustentacular cells. This mucous membrane also contains Bowman's gland. Okay, it consists of 10 to 20 million olfactory receptor cells. Okay. The olfactory receptor cell, actually it is a bipolar neuron. The dendrite of the neuron is short, but the expanded end of the dendrite is called as olfactory rod. This is the olfactory rod. The expanded end of the dendrite is called as olfactory rod. So from the rod, about 10 to 12 cilia arises, and this cilia, actually it is non-myelinated and it projects to the surface of the mucous membrane. So we have an olfactory receptor which is situated in the mucous membrane. We also has a Bowman's gland in the mucous membrane. The dendrite of the olfactory receptor is short, but the expanded part is known as the olfactory rod. From there, which arises 10 to 12 cilia. These cilia projects to the mucous membrane. That is about olfactory receptor. Coming to the olfactory pathway. What about the axons? With the dendrites are short and it's expanded, and it is called as the olfactory rod, which has cilia and which projects to the mucous membrane. What about the axons of this? The axons of the bipolar neuron, that is the bipolar olfactory receptors, it pierces the cribriform plate. You can see the cribriform plate here. This is the cribriform plate. The axons of the olfactory receptor pierces the cribriform plate, and cribriform plate is actually situated in the which bone it is? Cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. So axons of the bipolar neuron, that's the bipolar olfactory receptors, pierce the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone and reach the olfactory bulb. This is the olfactory bulb. Okay. And what happens here? The axon synapse here in the olfactory bulb, and it synapses with the dendrites of the mitral cells. You can see the yellow colored part in the olfactory bulb. That is a mitral cell. This is the mitral cell. So what happens here? The axon of the olfactory receptor cells pierces the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone and reaches the olfactory bulb. And in the olfactory bulb, we have the axons. The axons of these receptor cells synapses with the dendrites of the mitral cell. Okay, mitral cells have dendrites. The dendrites of mitral cells synapses with the axons of the receptor cells, and different group of these synapses form globular structures called olfactory glomerulus. You can see a round yellow color in the olfactory bulb. So this is the olfactory glomerulus as a part of the synapses taking place between the dendrites of the mitral cell and the axons of the receptor cells. Okay, that's the olfactory glomerulus. So this olfactory glomerulus, and what happens next? The axons of mitral cell. We have mitral cell dendrites. Mitral cell, we have axons as well as dendrites. So the dendrites of mitral cell synapses with the axons of the olfactory receptor. What about the axons of the mitral cell? The axons of mitral cell, it leaves the olfactory bulb and form the olfactory tract. The olfactory tract runs backwards and ends in the olfactory cortex. So that's about the olfaction. So starting is the olfactory receptor, which is situated in the mucous membrane. It is present in the, it is situated in the mucous membrane. The mucous membrane contains a gland known as Bowman's gland. The mucous membrane, the olfactory receptor has dendrites which are short, and the expanded part of the dendrite is called the olfactory rod. The olfactory rod has 10 to 12 cilia arising from it, and it projects to the mucous membrane. And then what about the axons of the olfactory receptor? The axons of the olfactory receptor pierces the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, and it reaches the olfactory bulb. In the olfactory bulb, what happens? The axons synapse with the dendrites of the mitral cells. We have mitral cells in the olfactory bulb. The dendrites of the mitral cell synapses with the axon of the olfactory receptor. The axons of the mitral cell leave the the olfactory bulb and form the olfactory tract. And we have something also known as olfactory glomerulus. How the olfactory glomerulus occurs is that the axons of the olfactory receptor cells with the dendrites of the mitral cell synapses and form a olfactory glomerulus. The axons of mitral cell leave olfactory bulb and it ends in the olfactory tract, and this olfactory tract runs backwards and ends in olfactory cortex, which is the center for olfaction. The olfactory cortex includes actually the structures which form a part of limbic system. Olfactory receptors are situated in the olfactory mucous membrane. The mucous membrane consists of 10 to 20 millions of olfactory receptor cells supported by sustentacular cells. The mucosa is lined by mucus-secreting Bowman's glands. Also, the mucus contains some proteins which increase the actions of odoriferous substances on receptor cells. So, pathway, you can write this pathway at least now. Within olfactory receptor cells, a bipolar neuron. The dendrite of this neuron is short and has an expanded end called olfactory rod. From olfactory rod, we have around about 10 to 12 cilia arises and projects into the mucous membrane. The axons of the olfactory receptor cell pierces the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone and reaches the olfactory bulb. The axons synapses with dendrites of the mitral cells, and the axons of mitral cells leave the olfactory bulb and reaches the olfactory tract. And different groups of the axons of the receptor cells and the dendrites of the mitral cells synapses and form a structure known as olfactory glomeruli, and the cells which left the olfactory bulb and reaches the olfactory tract, which goes to the olfactory cortex. The olfactory cortex includes anterior olfactory nucleus, prepiriform cortex, olfactory tubercle, and amygdala, which is a part of limbic system. So that's a flow chart which is easy. You can score marks in exam. That's why I made a flow chart here. You can copy down if you want.